the reason that USPK was set up was I'll admit, a bit fear-based, right? When the gymnastics, associate or FIG announced all of this stuff, everyone was pretty panicked about it. But again, I think USPK sprang out of really good intentions, even if it was fear-based. It was people saying, hey, we've talked about a governing body before, and a lot of people had. It was a lot of kind of closed door discussions or people talking in the community at different jams about it. But this was really the first time, several orgs that kind of had maybe been in competition before to some extent. You had, Apex, American Parkour, Parkour Generations, Parkour Visions, and Tempest all kind of coming together and saying like, hey, rather than be in competition about any franchises or gyms or equipment or anything, what we need to do is come together and create a governing body so that we at least have something set up so that the next time gymnastics comes back around, it exists. They can't just ignore us. They can't just say like, oh, well, those parkour is just a bunch of hippies that like to jump on stuff. They're not organized. They don't know what they're doing. Instead we have some sort of governing body to come back to and say like, yeah, like the community is rallied around this. We are trying to, basically function under good governance, which is openness and transparency, so that the community knows what we're doing. They can weigh in on those things. It's democratic in nature. So that is kind of the impetus to create USPK. And then I think the number one thing I hear from people all the time is like, if they know of USPK, they're like, well, I heard about you guys when you first came out and that was it. I haven't really heard much since then. And yeah, we hear that, like we get everyone's perspective on that. I think the behind the scenes stuff to create a governing body and create things like bylaws and a charter and just kind of like, it's sort of your constitution of how USPK is supposed to run. Is it fair? How do people get elected to these positions? All of that stuff at the end of the day is probably not going to be super sexy to anyone who's training parkour, right? Unless you were, in governance and, your job or, to the political debates in high school or something like that, it's probably not going to be super fascinating. And a lot of it is extremely tedious. So to get a lot of that into shape took some time. And that's specifically because everyone that was working on USPK had a full-time gig doing something else within parkour, whether it's running companies or several gyms or, running a certification course. All of the folks that have been involved in USPK so far are all extremely parkour centric and all have their own full-time and sometimes several side hustles on top of that. And so everyone's time was super limited in the beginning. We're finally getting to a point where I feel like it's starting to roll a little bit more, and we're trying to be better about the marketing side of things so that people actually know what we're doing so that we can uphold that transparency part of it.